Hello and welcome back to Eve Space Project. Right now we are continuing off on Gilly. We have done our mining for some of the materials that we needed, and it's time to head back to the base. Unfortunately, there was a small complication there because I'm using Air Park to actually hold myself onto Gilly because it's such a pain when you load in and it bounces. Yeah, and I couldn't figure out the release, it took me a minute. But we have our materials and we're heading back, and because I am impatient as hell, we are actually going as fast as possible, which causes me problems on occasion. I'm well aware of this, as you'll see quite badly in this episode actually. But we're just sort of skimming about and trying to head back as fast as possible, which we do eventually get back. Because of the low gravity and trying to steer things, the fact that I didn't realise the landing gear included the thrusters, it takes a little bit of time to get back onto the ground when we're close to the base. But once we're here, we set up our distribution using the Wild Blue Industries so that I don't actually have to clip anything together. The resources are just shared between the ship and the base. So if the base needs them, they'll pull them from the resources and the resources on the ship and all that jazz, which is quite nice. So once we've got all this sorted, it's time for a little bit more base expansion. I have a few things to build, but also I want to set this up as a factory for making ships. So I actually do need to set this up as a base, as a better base for building. And one of the things that I've done is there's an AI drone component in Extraplanetary's launch pads, which is brilliant, but it's huge. So tiny cheat, I actually put a little bit of tweak scale code into the part, and I'm going to use that later on. But I've also unlocked ion engines, so as you can see here, and this is 4 times time acceleration, this is one of my first ion relays. As you can tell, I'm going for a good size relay, and part of the reason for it is exactly that I need big relays. As you saw in the last episode, I lost contact with the ship, so I'm basically going bigger and better. We get some lovely solar panels here from the new near future solar mod. We're trying to make a big relay. Now, I was originally going to put this round Eve, and I need to do a little bit more work with it because it does have a good thruster ratio. That centre part, people recognise it from the stock parts. It's actually been enlarged with tweak scale, and some of the thrusters have been enlarged as well. So I'm trying to create, using the tweak scale mod without installing too many other mods, I'm trying to create parts that I need. But unfortunately, partway through I had the idea to slingshot this out to Kerbin and had a good ability to launch it, but it had quite a long burn, and I didn't realise that burn would bring me into the atmosphere, and I would say again, but I got so annoyed at how stupid I was for that I just sacked it off as a bad effort. I'll probably come back to it at some point, but not for the foreseeable future. So, we need more building, as I've said before, so it's time for a new launch pad. And I'll show this here because there's a bit of a problem with connecting these. These are all being revamped, and that's why there's a bit of a problem, but I'm trying to get this. I want to get this done because I have some ships that I really want to get out there that have come from my testing. I spent about 3 days making a dropship, and then I lost the save file. I lost the craft file, and I had to recreate it from scratch. Now luckily it only took me a day because I kinda knew what I was doing and I made it slightly better, but yeah, that sent me into a rage, and I really want to show people it because I think it's a work of art, I really do. So we need to get, for me to create these things, I need a little bit more building ability because there is no way that I can create these on Eve. Or at least I can create them on Eve, but I'm never getting them to orbit. So, to counteract that, we are streamlining the base. So we've got a second launch pad there. And the reason for the second launch pad is because I want to start launching craft a little bit faster. Now the other thing that you need to do that is a faster production ability. So the first thing I build is this little drone ship, which is carrying 2 of the drone cores, the miniaturized ones. Now bear in mind, I can't make these under the OSE workshop because they're too large. They're 3 point whatever meter parts, and I've shrunk them down to 1.25. Now the cheaty thing is that this doesn't actually lower their ability at production. So if Taniwa is looking to do these and make that a tweak scalable thing, I'm more than happy for that to happen. But I wanted the actual AI ability to create things, and as far as I'm aware, I'm probably wrong on this, but as far as I'm aware, that AI ability isn't in the Pathfinder mod, because I'd like unmanned bases so that I can set them up with Kerbals and then leave them to produce things. So this is where I need this particular part, and the easiest thing for me to do was to tweak scale it. So I made this little craft that's got 2 of them on there, and then I have to lift them up and attach them on to a part of my base, and I decided to attach them onto the telescope. I think it's a telescope. I can't remember if it was called something else, but yeah, I attached them onto the big telescope, and that gives me an ability to automatically do things. Now I've got a Kerbal there, and that's fine, but he's not always going to be there, and on top of that, this gives me an extra production ability, so it accelerates how things are made, which is an advantage. So my plan was to, after I've done this, to go on to make some more things. And one of the first things I made was a couple more ion satellites. So these are just relays. I want more communication because I'm going quite heavily drone based. So a couple of these are just getting thrown up so that there is full coverage around about Gilly. Obviously I had a black spot in my coverage, which caused me to... I've not really lost the ship because it's still in orbit, but yeah, you get what I mean. So once this is up and it's done all its burn to circularize and things like that, I launched the second one as well, but there's no point in me showing the second one. And from there, after it's all renamed, we jump back down. And this is another part. Now, not a lot of people talk about this part of the extraplanetary launch pads, at least in videos. It's known about in the forums. But you can do recycling things. So these pads also have that ability brought in. So all I need to do is to get rid of a part, and if I was to scrap it, it would convert to equipment, but I want to turn it back into rocket parts. So instead of using any of the conversion things within the main industry, all I do is land it back on the launch pad, right click the launch pad and turn on activate recycler, and as you can see there, it just takes it apart piece by piece, and it's nice and simple. So a little bit of revamp later, I have a bigger ship, and I make 2 of them because I've got the 2 launch pads, and as you can see here, they just contain more of the AI drone cores, which will give me yet more production of efficiency. So we just sort of moved them off the launch pad because ground contact and loading in saves and things, you kind of want to move stuff off of these launch pads as soon as you can. Once they're released, at least. If they're not released, you can leave them there for ages. But we get them shifted on the launch pad, and then as you can see on the side of these, they have a little miniaturized grappler. And the point of this is that instead of having all of the RCS problems I was having, part of which is because these don't actually have, or they didn't have, sideways controls. What I've done here on this version is actually use the standard RCS port instead of the 5-way ports that I believe came with Wild Blue Industries. I can't remember exactly which one, but the 5-way ports, actually the 5th way on it wasn't working. So I made standards and put in that little inline-ins RCS port to make them work properly, and then put the grappler on so that I could just activate it and do this, and just clamp it straight onto the side as a working platform. So I've basically got a scaffold, and from there on the scaffold we just have to send up a little Kerbal, grab our parts and plonk them into the attachment points, and it works quite nicely. Now sometimes, I don't know why, but you get them where they want to go inside the part. I have no idea why that happens, but sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, and I don't exactly mind. It is a bit of a pain when you're placing the tents, but aside from that, we're all good. And to limit any damage or anything's going wrong, I keep the part count as low as I can. So I land this one before hooking the next one in and recycle this so I have less parts and less craft in the local area. So once I can get it down onto the landing pad, we switch back to the base, activate the recycler, and away the stuff goes. And that just converts it straight back into rocket parts, so it's not like I've wasted anything for it to be to launch these this way instead of making them in the OSE, which obviously I couldn't do anyways. But it works quite well, and we get a whole load of this stuff in line. Managed to plank on some more drone calls, so in total we've actually got 10 AI drone calls running, which will give us a huge boost in production efficiency. And also can create rocket parts as well, but I don't need that because I've got the big factory doing that as well, which works at a far greater efficiency. So from here we're just tidying up the place, and I make a small mistake where I forget that the pad has already got the recycler activated, so it grabs it and I'm switching through trying to figure out as the pad's just doing what I want it to. Something to be aware of, that you should turn the recycler off after you've finished recycling a particular part, because you could recycle something by accident. And from there we go into making another little saucer drone ship. Now the point of this is to return ore to the orbit of Eve to complete a mission, and then I was just going to land a thing on Eve afterwards, purely because it'll get me some extra credits. The problem is that this doesn't work, so I quick save and quick load and it's just not there. So using vessel mover, I actually just spawned a new one with everything in it, which caused a problem later down the line. I didn't realise at the time what I'd done wrong, but I don't know what actually caused the craft to go missing. It was something confusing, but it essentially spawned and then the engines wouldn't turn on. So after a while of trying to fix it, and then quick saving, quick loading, and the vessel not being there, so I restarted the game, quick loaded, the vessel still wasn't there, so I just spawned a new one, and it was in the right time, it had saved afterwards. To complete the mission, I took this new one back to Eve, and as you can see there, I bring open the mission page, and I make another mistake and go a little bit too low, so I decide to spin and do a yield spinning trick, because it's not exactly cheaty if nobody's on board the thing. But we use the throttle and all that to sort out our orbit, and we lower our orbit to a decent amount. However, I never complete the mission, and the reason I reckon that I've never completed the mission is because the ore didn't come from the ground, it was spawned in. So I think that's what's actually stopped me from creating this, so I need to do something else in the future. But we can still land the product. So we take a little ship, do a couple of little buttons, and get ourselves on a re-entry profile that will actually lead to the KSC. Obviously trying to maximise funding. I really can't speak today, I'm full of the cold. And because everything is just going weirdly wrong for me, I don't realise that I'd be re-entering at such a speed. And I detonate part of the ship. The controlling part of the ship. But the rest of the ship is here. And this is unguided, there is no control method that I can use, it is just gliding. And after a while, as you can see how it glides, it actually manages to land, and I do recover part of it. So I made some money off of it. And then I go into redesign afterwards and come up with this thing, which is another way to ferry some stuff back down to the planet. Now this is nice, simple ship, gentle takeoff. That's why I'm putting the rockets at the side, because I've had problems with pads exploding in the past. It's the reason they're named the disposable pads these days. But I'm trying to make my rockets a lot gentler for launching. And part of the reason is, part of the benefit of that on Gilly is that I need less thrust to take off. But as you can see, we've got a lovely little craft here, and I'm just decelerating down to the planet, and then using the heat shield to decelerate in the atmosphere. All seems nice and simple. And with a bit of time warping later, we get to the planet, do a solid deceleration, and then I don't actually have enough fuel to completely enter orbit and then deorbit. I can deorbit slightly, but I need the heat shield. So there you go, I was quite good on my Delta V. Double check everything, expand my heat shield, head retrograde, and nice and simple. Now I'm using MechJeb's SAS because for some weird reason this particular command prompt has an autopilot but no SAS functions. It's one from the DSEV mod. I was never sure why that happened and I forgot to ask Angel about it, but we managed to get there. However, because I'm time warping in, it unbalances the craft. This craft was tested, so I'm sure it was because I time warped in. And yet again, we lose another craft. So we lose the parts that I'm trying to recover. Now I can make more, that's not a problem, it's just a pain in the backside doing this. But to end up today, I'm just showing you the last little buns. Now we did 2 of these ships, I'm just going to show you the one because I lost the footage for the other one, as usual. But we have 2 of these that are they are identical, and they're going to roughly the same, or they're burning out of Eve at least. However, this one is burning to Juna. The other one in question is actually burning to Kerbin. So this is just the stages of the burn. As you can see there, I had to go through multiple stages because of how low the thrust is. But hopefully we will have at least something at Kerbin, possibly this one at Juna as well, by the next time. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you again. Bye!